Hi. You're watching Reddit Confessions, stories you won't forget. Let me tell you what happened the night I stopped being the invisible man in my own marriage. The second I stepped into the ballroom, I knew I shouldn't have come. Not because I didn't belong there. I've gotten used to that feeling. The polished shoes, the slick haircuts, the soft laughter from people who say, we should circle back, like it's a prayer. No, I shouldn't have come because something in my gut twisted before we even hit the coat check. And I've learned the hard way, your gut whispers the truth long before your brain catches up. My wife had already vanished into a swarm of coworkers before I could even adjust my tie. No eye contact. No, you look nice. Just the back of her head disappearing into the current like a sleek little fish darting into deeper water. I stood there by a faux marble pillar for 11 minutes. 11. I counted. And that's when he found me. He didn't introduce himself. Didn't even offer a handshake. He just leaned in with this confident slouch and said, "You must be her husband." No name. No, "Hey, I'm so-and-so." Just that. Like I was the forgotten prize on a dusty shelf. "You've got the face of a guy who works remote," he added, chuckling at his own cleverness. "Big night for you, huh?" I smiled. I always smile. That's my default setting, especially when I'm humiliated. It's not a reflex. It's a defense mechanism. He kept going. "She's one of the sharpest here," he said, sipping his drink without looking at me. "Hard to imagine how she unwinds at home. Must be a different version of her when she's with you." There was no laugh track. Just that silence that hits when someone pretends they're joking but every word cuts straight. And just like that, he walked away. Not out of awkwardness, not guilt. He was done. Like a lion satisfied with a casual swat at the slowest antelope in the field. I was left standing there with my drink. Plastic cup. Sweaty hands. Heart pounding in my throat like I just heard my name during roll call in high school. The night only got worse from there. I watched my wife speak to him again later. Her back was arched a little more. Her laugh had this melody I hadn't heard in months. And when she touched his shoulder, it wasn't for balance. It lingered. I didn't storm out. I didn't scream. I just watched. And I remembered. I remembered the time she said she was working late, but came home with her heels in her hand and perfume I didn't recognize. I remembered the new password on her phone. The shift in the way she said, "I'm tired," like it was code for, "Don't ask." And now I had a face to assign it all to. Ridge. His name was Ridge. He would learn mine soon enough. But not the way he expected. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft hum of the radiator and the occasional shift of Nadine's body beside me. She was out like a light, peaceful as ever, one arm draped over her pillow like nothing happened. Meanwhile, I was replaying every second of that ballroom interaction like a security camera stuck on loop. Every laugh. Every sideways glance. Every casual brush of her fingers on Ridge's suit. Something about it didn't sit right. And I mean more than jealousy. There was an ease between them, the kind of ease that isn't built in an office. It's built in secret. Over time. With intention. The next morning, she made coffee like she always did. She wore one of my old t-shirts, which I think was her way of signaling normalcy. That everything was fine. That she wasn't part of something I wasn't supposed to see. But I noticed little things. Her phone never left her hand. She smiled when she read a message, then immediately swiped it away when I got close. I told myself not to spiral. That maybe I was just being paranoid. Maybe Ridge was just another arrogant jerk in a suit, and maybe Nadine just liked to laugh and flirt and didn't mean anything by it. But then I saw the notification on her laptop later that night while she was in the shower. It was just a quick flash from her messaging app, a chat with Ridge SP Strategy. I couldn't see the full message, but I caught 2 words before the window faded: last night and your dress. My chest tightened. My palms went cold. I didn't open the message. I didn't snoop. Not because I didn't want to, trust me, I did, but because I wanted her to tell me. I needed to see if she would. I needed to believe that if I gave her space to be honest, she'd take it. So after dinner, I asked. Calmly. Like I was discussing the weather. Hey, that guy Ridge, you two seemed close. She didn't even look up from her plate. Ridge? Oh, he's just like that. He's loud. Everyone thinks he's annoying. You didn't look annoyed. She blinked, set her fork down, and gave me that slow, deliberate smile. Are you jealous, Lowell? I hated the way she said it. Like jealousy was something pathetic. Like it was funny that I'd even consider myself competition. I told her I wasn't jealous, I just noticed how they interacted. That it felt, more than casual. She laughed. You overthink everything. That's your problem. You create drama where there isn't any. I let it go. I had to. She shut the door before I even got my foot near it. But that night, I started digging. Not in her phone or her laptop, that would be too obvious, and frankly, she's smarter than me when it comes to hiding things. No, I started with LinkedIn. I looked up Ridge. I found his profile. Graduated from Stanford. Worked at 3 high-profile firms before landing a director position at Nadine's company. His banner photo was a yacht. Of course it was. Then I found his Instagram. It was public. Mostly photos of expensive watches, his dog, and gym selfies captioned with things like grind mode and only up. But buried between filtered sunsets and hashtags was something that stopped me cold. 2 weeks ago, he posted a group photo from what looked like a private party. Nadine was in the background. Laughing. Same dress she told me she wore to a team-building dinner. Only she wasn't sitting with her team. She was next to Ridge. Close. Too close. Her hand was on his thigh. Not resting. Pressed. Familiar. She lied. Flat out, to my face. Told me it was just drinks with her department. I remember offering to pick her up that night. She said no, they were taking a rideshare. Don't worry, babe. It's nothing. I felt my stomach churn. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because I realized something in that moment. For once in my life, I had an advantage. She thought I was clueless. She thought I wouldn't fight back. That I'd just retreat like I always did. But I was done retreating. If Ridge wanted to mock me, he should have waited to see what I'm capable of when I stop playing the fool. And Nadine? She was about to learn just how much I see when she thinks I'm not looking. I wasn't raised to be calculating. I was raised to be kind. My mother once told me that keeping the peace was the highest form of love. So I became a man who avoids confrontation, swallows discomfort, and smooths over jagged edges with too many apologies. That's how I survived my marriage. That's how I became invisible in my own home, by playing the quiet, dependable background character in her story. But something shifted after I saw that photo of Nadine with Ridge. I didn't yell. I didn't smash anything. I didn't even cry. I started listening. Really listening. For the first time in years, I paid attention to the details she thought I'd miss. Her tone when she talked to me. Her choice of words. Her timing. Her silences. Every day, little breadcrumbs dropped around me like clues in a game I didn't know I'd been playing. I began to track them, quietly, meticulously, not to punish her, but to finally understand what had been happening beneath the surface. And one evening, a week later, I found what I wasn't supposed to. It was subtle, a receipt left inside the front pocket of her coat. I only noticed it because I was hanging it for her. She had come home late, saying she stayed after work for a Women in Leadership mixer. She smelled like wine and peppermint lip balm and tossed her bag on the couch without looking at me. I offered to hang her coat, something I'd done hundreds of times, and that's when the crumpled paper slipped out. It was a dinner receipt. From a rooftop restaurant in the city I'd never heard of. A 2-person bill, time-stamped for the exact hour she claimed to be at that networking event. Wine, dessert, and something called Duo of Duck. The name on the receipt? Ridge Talbot. My heart didn't break. It didn't even ache. It went quiet. I took a photo of the receipt. Put it back. Didn't say a word. She went upstairs and FaceTimed her sister like nothing happened. I could hear her laughing through the floorboards. I sat in the kitchen and stared at the fridge magnets for a long time, wondering when exactly our lives diverged. When did she stop seeing me as her partner and start seeing me as a liability? The next morning, I began writing. Not a confession. Not a goodbye letter. A list. A list of everything I'd noticed in the past year that didn't add up. All the late nights. The cancelled plans. The work trips that had no itinerary. The sudden interest in her appearance, the passwords changed on her phone, the nervous glances when she got texts at dinner. It was longer than I expected. I also started recording audio in the kitchen. I set up an old phone I no longer used, angled behind the toaster, and left the voice memo app running anytime she had a call nearby. Was it ethical? I don't know. But when you're the one being lied to in your own home, your moral compass starts spinning. And it paid off. Because 3 days later, I caught her saying something that made my blood run cold. She was on the phone with someone, I assumed Ridge, and said, "It's just a matter of time. He's too passive to question anything. He still thinks I'm in this marriage." She laughed. And then, the sound of her wine glass clinking. She didn't know she was talking about the version of me that no longer existed. That night, I began preparing for something I never imagined I'd do. Not revenge. Not destruction. Exposure. I wasn't going to scream or slam doors. I was going to let the truth do all the damage. And the best part? I'd let them walk straight into it themselves. I used to think there was something noble about staying silent. That letting things slide made me the bigger person. But silence, I've learned, is just an invitation. An invitation for people to start testing limits. And my silence had taught Nadine that I didn't mind being left behind. That I wouldn't notice if she slowly built a life in which I was more decorative than essential. But I noticed. And now, for the first time in our 12-year marriage, I was ready to do something with what I saw. The final crack came on a Thursday. Nadine had a team-building weekend out of town. She packed fast, like she couldn't wait to get out of the house. No eye contact, no double-checking if I needed anything. I helped her zip the suitcase anyway. That's who I am. Or who I was. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Don't wait up." The moment the door shut behind her, I stood still for a long time. Listening to nothing. Then I opened her laptop. Not because I planned to, I hadn't crossed that line yet, but because she forgot to close it, and the screen was glowing like an invitation. What I found wasn't some dramatic email thread or a hidden folder full of photos. It was worse than that. Subtle. Ordinary. But revealing. A calendar event. Dinner with the Manor at Seven Pines. That wasn't a hotel. That was a private estate-style restaurant. And the time? 7:30 p.m. Definitely not a team mixer. I closed the laptop. I didn't rage. I didn't pace. I sat in my chair in the den and stared out the window at the empty driveway for almost an hour. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My cousin, Miles, works in security systems, installs cameras, runs silent surveillance, and, more importantly, doesn't ask questions. We weren't close, but I knew he owed me a favor from way back when he was almost expelled and I helped cover for him. I didn't go into detail. I just said I needed help with proof of infidelity, and there was a long silence on the other end before he replied, "Text me the address." That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I drove 2 hours outside the city to the manor at Seven Pines. I didn't go inside. I parked where no one could see me and waited. And at exactly 7:34 p.m., I watched as a sleek black SUV pulled into the circle driveway. Ridge stepped out first. Buttoned blazer. Polished grin. Then came Nadine, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. Backless. Slim. Meant to impress. She took his arm like it was natural, like it had always been his. I didn't cry. I recorded. From the dash, I snapped photo after photo as they entered the restaurant. Then I left. I wasn't trying to catch them kissing. I wasn't trying to confront them in some big dramatic scene. That wasn't the point. I wanted evidence. Not for a lawyer. Not for social media. For her. For the moment I'd finally decide to let the mirror drop and show her exactly what she'd become. 2 days later, Nadine returned from her team retreat with a souvenir mug and a bottle of wine that she claimed came from a local vineyard. I smiled. I asked about the event. She fed me a lie without blinking. Said the weather was perfect. Said the group bonded over trust exercises and a group hike. I poured her a glass of that wine and watched her sip it like a woman with no weight on her conscience. And then she said something that stuck to me like a thorn. I feel like I'm finally reconnecting with who I really am. I didn't say it, but I wanted to ask, is that person someone who betrays the one who stood by her through all the years of doubt, of layoffs, of grief and silence? I knew then what I had to do. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to beg. But the next time she lied to me, I would be ready. And this time, I wouldn't be the one unraveling. She would. There's something quietly powerful about knowing the truth while pretending you don't. You start to see every word, every pause, every deflection through a new lens. Nadine didn't just lie, she curated her lies. Polished them. Wore them like perfume. And I let her. For weeks, I let her live inside her fiction, because I was building something bigger than confrontation. I was building certainty. It all came to a head on a Tuesday. I remember because it rained the whole day, a slow, soaking kind of rain that seemed to bleed into the walls. She had another after-work meeting, and I offered, casually, to pick her up. She declined just as casually, saying it was at a colleague's house, and that it would go late. I asked if Ridge would be there, like it was an afterthought, not a trap. She paused for a half second. Maybe less. No, she said. Different department. That was all I needed. Because I already knew exactly where she'd be. I had installed a small GPS tracker, nothing fancy, just one of those magnetic types you can hide under the frame of a car. I checked the location while she was drying her hair upstairs. By the time she walked out the door, I already had my jacket on. She drove 30 minutes to a residential neighborhood in a part of town we'd never had reason to visit. Ridge's house. I knew it before I saw the driveway. The porch light was on. Her car rolled in, headlights off, as if she already felt guilty about being seen. I didn't follow her in. I didn't take photos. I just sat across the street, engine off, radio off, breath slow. And waited. 47 minutes later, she emerged. She was laughing as she stepped back out the front door. Laughing. She touched Ridge's chest with one hand, casually, familiarly. Then she walked to her car with that relaxed swing in her hips I hadn't seen in months. Ridge leaned against the doorframe, arms folded, watching her go. There was nothing professional about any of it. Nothing left to wonder. The next morning, I cooked her breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, the whole thing. She looked surprised. She smiled. Said, "You're spoiling me today." I wanted to laugh. I wanted to scream. But instead, I just said, "I figured you might be tired. Long night, right?" She nodded, but I could see her eyes scanning me, searching for something. Maybe guilt. Maybe suspicion. She didn't find it. Because I had buried it deep. Later that afternoon, I made a decision. I went to the print shop downtown. I printed every photo I had, from the restaurant, the street, the gala. I made a neat little folder, labeled it, "For You," and sealed it in a manila envelope. Then I wrote a note. This isn't about punishment. It's about acknowledgement. I see you. I've always seen you. But you stopped seeing me. That night, I left the envelope on the driver's seat of her car while she was in the shower. Then I waited. When she came back in from the garage, the look on her face was electric. She didn't speak right away. She held the envelope in both hands like it was ticking. "What's this?" she finally asked, not looking at me. "I think you already know." She opened it on the kitchen table. No tears. No gasp. Just silence. She flipped through each photo, one by one, like she was reviewing a project proposal. When she got to the note, she stared at it longer than she did the photos. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She simply said, "You've been spying on me." I almost laughed. After everything, that was her angle. I didn't answer. Instead, I said something I never thought I'd have the strength to say. "I'm done pretending. You've been building a life without me. Maybe it's time I start doing the same." She didn't respond. She didn't chase after me. And I didn't leave that night. But I slept in the guest room. And for the first time in years, I slept deeply. Because now, the mask was off. And the part she didn't understand, the part that Ridge definitely didn't see coming, was that the quiet man who always stepped aside was no longer part of the game. He'd been replaced by someone they underestimated too long. I expected fallout. I expected yelling, denial, maybe even some crocodile tears about how it didn't mean anything and we just got close emotionally. But Nadine wasn't the type to grovel. She was methodical. Polished. The kind of person who treats confrontation like a PR crisis, control the narrative, contain the damage, and above all else, don't lose the upper hand. After the envelope, she didn't speak to me for 2 days. Not out of guilt. Out of calculation. She moved through the house like a tenant who suddenly found the landlord living in the kitchen, cautious, composed, never giving more than she had to. I wasn't surprised. That silence had always been her most effective weapon. But this time, I didn't crumble beneath it. I stayed the course. I cooked for myself. Slept in the guest room. Worked in the garage. I even called up a few old friends I hadn't spoken to in years and pretended like everything was fine. Meanwhile, I was quietly putting plans into motion. Plans that had nothing to do with revenge, not in the way people think of it, but everything to do with reclaiming my name in this story. You see, for years, I had let her write the script. She decided when we went to her friends' weddings and skipped mine. She decided when we hosted parties and who got invited. She even decided how we decorated the house, minimalist, cold, perfect for social media. I had become furniture in my own life. Useful. Silent. Always in the right place. Not anymore. I started small. I pulled out my savings, the separate account she forgot existed, the one I'd quietly built from freelance side gigs. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Then I contacted an old college friend named Ezra, who ran a photography business in upstate Vermont. He owed me a favor from way back. I asked if I could stay at his family cabin for a few weeks, off the grid, no questions asked. He said yes without hesitation. Then came the big step. I called my boss. Most people didn't know I even had one. My work had always been remote. Quiet. But I'd spent years designing internal tools for a firm that worked exclusively with vintage equipment restoration across museums and collectors. I explained the situation, vaguely, told him I needed to disappear for a while, but I'd bring my laptop. To my surprise, he said, "Lowell, go. You've earned it. Just give me 1 week's heads up before you cut off contact." Then came the most difficult part, talking to my brother. Gavin and I hadn't been close for a while. We drifted, mostly because he couldn't stand the way Nadine treated me. "You don't have a wife, man," he told me once after a Christmas dinner, "you have a boss who shares your bed." I pushed him away after that. Now, I needed him more than I wanted to admit. I told him everything. The gala. Ridge. The photos. Her silence. The slow erosion of everything I'd once trusted. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just said, "Let me know when you want help moving." It hit me harder than any argument Nadine and I ever had. Someone still saw me as worth saving. That same night, Nadine finally spoke. She came into the guest room without knocking. She stood in the doorway like a stranger. "So what now?" she asked. No emotion. Just logistics. "I'm leaving," I said. She blinked. "For how long?" "I don't know yet." She folded her arms, shifted her weight. "And what do I tell people?" There it was, her priority laid bare. Not what I needed. Not whether she'd broken us beyond repair. Just, optics. "Tell them whatever makes you feel better," I said, and turned back to packing. She stood there for another moment, probably searching for some thread of control to yank on. But there was nothing left. I had already cut it. The next morning, I left. No dramatic goodbye. No final fight. I loaded up my car, drove 5 hours north, and pulled into a gravel driveway where the trees stood like quiet witnesses. Ezra met me with coffee and a simple nod. I didn't unpack right away. I just stood on the porch, staring at the forest, wondering how many versions of me had died in that house over the last year. But more than that, I wondered what kind of man I'd become now that I was finally free to start over, on my terms. I didn't block Nadine. I wanted her to see me rebuild. I wanted Ridge to know I wasn't some timid ghost in the background of their affair. And I wanted the whole story to unfold slowly, because some betrayals deserve silence, but others? They deserve a stage. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with vanishing. Not the movie kind, where you fake your death or sail into a sunset with a new name. No, I mean the quiet act of slipping out of people's lives while they're still busy talking over you. The first week in the cabin, no one called. No texts. No emails. Just trees, mist, and the creak of old wooden floorboards beneath my bare feet. And it felt right. I spent most mornings walking the trails behind Ezra's property. I found an old logging road, long abandoned, and made it my new path. It felt symbolic, a road no one cared about anymore, still holding steady in silence. I'd breathe in the smell of pine, kick at fallen branches, and sometimes just sit on a moss-covered rock wondering if I was crazy for not confronting Nadine more directly. But then I'd remember the look in her eyes when I told her I was leaving, not grief, not panic, just calculation. She was already managing the narrative in her head. Midway through the second week, something unexpected happened. I got a text. From Ridge. I didn't even know he had my number. I stared at the notification for a full 5 minutes before I opened it. The message was short. "I heard you left. Smart move, man. She's exhausting." That was it. No name, no context. Like we were old buddies swapping war stories. I didn't reply. Because for the first time, I saw something clearly: Ridge hadn't won anything. Nadine was just as strategic with him as she was with me. He might have gotten a part of her she withheld from me, but he was inheriting the same slow-drip poison. He was just too arrogant to see it. But still, something about that message clung to me. I reread it again that night. She's exhausting. Was that how they talked about her behind her back too? Were they both using each other, playing roles while pretending they were above consequence? Later that night, Ezra knocked on the door. "You've got a visitor," he said, raising an eyebrow. I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Until I stepped onto the porch and saw Nadine standing there. Soaked from the rain. No umbrella. Hair flat against her cheeks. She was holding her car keys in one hand, a small duffel bag in the other. She looked tired. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. My first instinct was to close the door. But something in her face, not desperation, but confusion, stopped me. Like she wasn't even sure why she was there. I let her in. Ezra gave me a look as he retreated inside. This was my mess now. She stood in the living room like a stranger in a museum. She didn't sit. Didn't touch anything. "I thought you might have blocked me," she said softly. "I thought you might have forgotten me," I replied. She didn't flinch. "I haven't been with him," she said. "Not since you left." I raised an eyebrow. "That's not the win you think it is." She nodded, accepting that. There was silence for a long time. The kind that stretches out like a bridge with missing planks, one wrong word and the whole thing collapses. Then she said something I never expected. "You were never the problem." I let those words hang in the air. Not because I believed them, but because I needed to hear her say them. I needed confirmation that I hadn't imagined it all, the lies, the distance, the betrayal. She had finally cracked the illusion. I didn't ask her why she came. I didn't invite her to stay. Instead, I gave her a towel and told her she could dry off in the guest room. I made no promises. I set no traps. I simply let her exist in this space I had carved out for myself, a space that didn't need her approval. That night, I laid awake again, but not from pain. From clarity. She had come looking for something. Maybe it was redemption. Maybe it was control. Maybe just familiarity. But what she found was a man who had finally stepped out of her shadow. She found someone who didn't need her to feel whole. And somewhere, deep down, I think that scared her more than losing me ever did. Nadine stayed for 3 days. Not to beg. Not to make promises. Just, to be near something familiar. We didn't talk much. The cabin didn't invite drama. It held space like a quiet witness, and we both seemed to honor that. I cooked. She cleaned. We took walks. Sometimes, she'd pause mid-step and look at me like she was searching for some version of me she thought she'd buried years ago. On the second night, she sat across from me by the fireplace and finally asked the question I'd been expecting. "Is there a chance for us?" I didn't answer right away. I stared at the flames dancing in the glass, and for once, I didn't feel small. "I don't know," I said. "But I think we both know it wouldn't be the same. And maybe that's okay." She nodded slowly. "I don't want it to be the same." The next morning, she left. No drama. No tears. Just a quiet goodbye and a long look before she pulled out of the gravel driveway. I watched her car disappear between the trees, then turned and walked back inside. And I didn't feel broken. I felt weightless. I stayed at the cabin for another month. In that time, I found things I thought I'd lost: my patience, my curiosity, my voice. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I got better at cooking. I even started a blog under a fake name, writing about restoring broken electronics, and broken lives. People started following. Reading. Reaching out. I wasn't just rebuilding radios anymore. I was rebuilding myself. And Nadine? She sent a letter 2 weeks later. Handwritten. Honest. It wasn't an ask for reconciliation. It was a thank you. For seeing her, even when she stopped seeing me. She said she was starting therapy. That she was rethinking the way she moved through the world. I believed her. Not because she earned it. But because I had made peace with the version of her that hurt me, and let him go. I've moved back home since then, not to the house, but to a small apartment across town. Quiet, simple, mine. I still see Nadine sometimes. Coffee, mostly. No bitterness. Just two people who shared a life once, learning how to be kind from a distance. As for Ridge, I heard he transferred to another city. I never got the details. And honestly, I stopped caring. Because he wasn't the story. I was. And now, finally, I get to be the one telling it. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you made it to the end, tell us in the comments, have you ever uncovered something quietly, and let the truth speak louder than confrontation? We'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this, where silence becomes power, and endings don't have to be bitter to be strong. See you in the next one.